Australia has set records when it comes to saving lives and saving livelihoods during the course of the pandemic. We've saved more than 30,000 lives. More than 1 million people have got themselves back into jobs, and our economic performance has worked through this global pandemic. But Australians have made great sacrifices to achieve that result, and that has been a heavy burden. Not being able to go to funerals, children not being able to go to school, families not being able to come together, significant religious celebrations, not being able to sing in church. All of these things, whether they be seen as small sacrifices or very great sacrifices, they have imposed a heavy burden on Australians. It's time to give Australians their lives back. We've saved lives, we've saved livelihoods, but we must work together to ensure that Australians can reclaim the lives that they once had in this country. Securing those additional vaccines, which I knew were necessary to keep driving those vaccination rates forward in September, has been remarkably successful. And that is giving us the opportunity to get Australia ready for takeoff. Will be time very soon that we'll be able to open those international borders again, and that will enable Australians who are fully vaccinated, and Australians and residents of Australia who are overseas, who are fully vaccinated, to be able to travel again and to be able to lift those caps on our airports in states where they have moved into phase C of the program. And that is where Australia is now preparing to move. This will happen next month. That's when it'll start happening, from next month. As states move into those 80% vaccination rates, we've already got the technology and the other things in place that will support those states being able, under phase C of the plan, to enable their residents and citizens to leave the country and return, and also those residents and Australians who are overseas to return to Australia as if they are vaccinated, with uncapped restrictions on their arrival in those states which have moved into that phase. We won't be going down the red light, green light path. We'll be treating this like we do travel advice across travel more generally. It is currently the case that you go to the DFAT website and we may be saying do not travel to particular places currently because of any number of threats. They can be health threats in those countries, they can be terror threats or security threats, and we'll treat COVID the same. And if there are places that we don't believe, based on the advice of the Chief Medical Officer, that we should be giving that do not travel advice or some caution in relation to travel to those places for vaccinated Australians, then we'll provide the advice that way. So rather than running a league table of green light and red light countries, you can go where you want to go, but that is subject only to the normal restrictions and advice that is provided by DFAT, which is put there for people's safety. Now, what we are saying though, Sam, is that vaccinated Australians will be able to travel. At this point, we are not saying unvaccinated Australians can travel, because that would be a risk to themselves. And a risk to themselves, their own health, because their likelihood of contracting the virus overseas, pretty much anywhere, because it's a global pandemic, is far higher than for a vaccinated person, obviously, and then risks the importation further of the virus back into Australia. So that's a common sense health position. It's frankly a position being taken by many airlines and others even before governments make decisions. Once changes are made in November, the current overseas travel restrictions related to COVID-19 will be removed, and Australians in those states will be able to travel, as I've said, and we'll be working towards complete quarantine-free travel for certain countries such as New Zealand when it is safe to do so. Thirdly, Australians who want to travel overseas, once restrictions are removed, will be able to access an internationally recognised proof of vaccination document. That'll be in the coming weeks to prove their vaccination status abroad, and that proof of vaccination for international travel will include a QR code that is readable globally. It works in with the ICAO systems that are used all around the world. Fourth, in addition to the 4 COVID-19 vaccines that have also been approved and registered for use by the TGA has also been reviewing other vaccines in widespread use around the world. And today the TGA has published its initial assessment of 2 other vaccines and has advised that these vaccines should be approved as recognised vaccines for the purpose of determining incoming international travellers Those vaccines are Sinovac and COVID Shield. They will be particularly important for those coming from countries where those vaccines are being used. India is an obvious one of those, as is China and other countries throughout Southeast Asia. This is an important next step in the national plan. This is set out in the national plan. No surprises here. This is what we agreed to do. That we said to Australians, we get to 80%, you can leave the country and you can come back again. If you're overseas, you should be able to come back if you're a fully vaccinated Australian resident or citizen. I'm going to keep the deal with Australians when it comes to the national plan. I'm going to keep the deal which said you go and get vaccinated and we're going to ensure that the many liberties and opportunities that you have will be restored. It is a great and terrible thing that they have had to be taken away because of the pandemic. We've all understood it, we've all worked through it, we've all suffered through it. But the time has come to give Australians their life back. We're getting ready for that, and Australia will be ready for takeoff very soon.
Prime Minister.
Now, the question is, well, how can you go to Bali or Fiji, but you can't go to Queensland? I'm sure there's plenty of tourism operators in Queensland who will be asking that question. But when vaccination rates hit 80% in Queensland, well, then there'll be opportunity for Queensland to join an open country when they hit that mark. This announcement today has been flagged with the airlines. They will be playing a key role in the process for vaccinated Australians to depart the country. So when you're checking in, they'll be playing a role there with the vaccination, a record of vaccination. So they're a key partner in this process. And this opens up a significant source of demand when we get into November. That's why I'm saying it in October. So there's plenty of time now for the airlines to go and prepare and plan, look at their demand, not just Qantas and Virgin, but many other airlines as well. And I think the demand pull of this will ensure that we'll see increased number of flights. But we've got to get it done because Australians want their lives back. The next step is that there'll be no caps for vaccinated Australians coming back at all. And I think that'll be very welcome in places like India, in the United Kingdom, United States, and up in Southeast Asia. And that they'll be coming back in the first instance for 7-day quarantine. And we'll see how that goes. And I think there will be opportunity to reduce that. And I think next year we'll be in a very different place again. So we'll take it step by step. Australia has always, through this pandemic, sought to do things in a patient and safe way. And we've been criticised for that by some in other parts of the world. But I can point to 30,000 Australians who can agree with our policy today because they're alive. And I have no regrets on that front, none whatsoever. But we also need to know when you need to move forward. And that's what I'm saying today. And the national plan will take us forward when we hit those 80% marks. And I think you'll see the quarantine arrangements change over time and become less onerous as we live with the virus. So we'll take those steps carefully, but we must take them. I mean, for example, when it comes to the isolation of people who may be contacts currently who are vaccinated, we're already seeing states move away from that. That's a good move. It's a sensible move. Actually, it's just logical that you would do that. And I think that will assist us in managing the pandemic going forward.